My name is Finn. I'm 24, living in a cramped little apartment on the outskirts of Lafayette, Indiana. Nothing fancy, just one room with creaky floorboards and a fridge that hums a bit too loudly. But it's mine. I scrape by as a freelance graphic designer, picking up small gigs from local businesses. It covers the bills and keeps me independent, even if I'm still figuring out my path. Life's been straightforward lately. Work during the week, maybe a beer with friends on weekends. No drama, no mess, just how I like it. It was one of those lazy afternoons, the kind where the world moves in slow motion. I was sprawled on my couch, scrolling through my phone, half listening to a podcast murmuring in the background. That's when I spotted a missed call from Reed, my best friend since high school. A text popped up right after. "Hey, I left my earbuds at your place last night. Can you drop them off? I'm out, but Mom's home. No big deal." Reed's house was only a 10-minute drive from mine, and I'd been there 100 times. I grabbed the tangled black earbuds from the coffee table leftovers from our gaming marathon the night before and shoved them into my backpack. No need to change. A hoodie and jeans were fine for a quick errand. The October air hit sharp when I stepped outside, carrying that crisp scent of fallen leaves that makes you crave a jacket. I climbed into my beat-up old Honda, queued up a mellow lo-fi playlist, and headed out. Reed's neighborhood is one of those quiet suburbs. Manicured lawns, kids on bikes here and there, a dog barking in the distance now and then. His house is a 2-story place with faded blue siding and a swing on the porch that's been there forever. I parked in the driveway, slung my bag over one shoulder, and walked up to the front door. I rang the bell, expecting Reed to answer, or maybe no one if he wasn't back yet. The door swung open, and there stood Mrs. Harlan. Not Reed, just her. And I swear, I wasn't ready. She was wrapped in a white towel, her dark hair dripping wet and clinging to her shoulders. She looked barely into her 40s, but there was something vibrant about her, electric, like she didn't quite fit in that peaceful little home. Her eyes met mine, and she didn't flinch or blush. She just smiled, calm as if it were the most normal thing. "Finn," she said, her voice warm, like we were old pals. "I wasn't expecting you. Reed's not here, but come on in, stay a bit." I froze right there, my hand still gripping my backpack strap. I was just dropping these off," I stammered, holding up the earbuds like a shield. My face burned, and I prayed it wasn't as red as it felt. "I didn't mean to bother you." She laughed softly, stepping aside to let me in. "Bother me? I just got out of the shower. It's nothing. Want some iced tea or lemonade?" I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to hand over the earbuds and bolt, but her tone so easy, so inviting pulled me over the threshold. The living room smelled faintly of lavender, probably from a candle on the coffee table. The TV was off, and the only sounds were the distant hum of a washing machine and the lazy spin of a ceiling fan. Miss Harlan vanished for a moment and returned in a loose gray sweatshirt and leggings, her hair still damp but tucked behind her ears. She handed me a glass of iced tea and settled on the couch across from me. "So," she said, sipping hers, "still doing the graphic design thing?" "Yeah," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Just landed my first big freelance gig. A logo for a local brewery." "That's great, Finn." Her smile was quiet but genuine. "Reed was always jealous of you, you know. He said you were the smart one." I laughed, easing up a little. "He's not wrong. I just hide it better." She laughed too, and for a moment, it felt like regular chat. But there was something in the air, something I couldn't pin down. Her gaze lingered on me a beat too long, and I felt my pulse quicken. Not from awkwardness, from how natural it all felt. Too natural. We talked for maybe 10 minutes about my work, her garden, how Reed always leaves stuff at my place. Then she leaned back, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "You know, it's nice having you here," she said, almost too offhand. "Things get quiet around here sometimes." I nodded, not sure what to say. "Yeah, I bet. Reed's always out and about, busy." "He is," she replied, her voice softening. "And I just stay put." Her words carried weight, heavier than the rest of our talk. I didn't push. I just sipped my tea and let the moment settle. When I left, I handed her the earbuds, and she thanked me with that same warm smile. I made it back to my car, the autumn air slapping my face, and drove home. But pulling into my spot, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. It wasn't just about the earbuds anymore. It was her Mrs. Harlan and the way she'd looked at me, like she saw more than her son's friend. For the first time, I wondered what she really saw. A few days after dropping off those earbuds, I ended up at Reed's again. It wasn't planned. He'd texted about trying out his new game, so I swung by after wrapping up a mock-up for a client. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky orange over Lafayette's quiet streets. I parked in the driveway, grabbed my bag, and headed to the door, bracing for Reed's usual yell. I rang the bell, and the door opened to Mrs. Harlan once more. No towel this time, just a simple black t-shirt and jeans, her hair loosely tied back, still damp like she'd just showered again. She smiled that serene warmth from before, but it landed differently now. "Finn," she said, stepping aside. "Reed's running late. Something at work. Come in anyway." "No need to stand out there." I paused, clutching my bag strap. "You sure? I can come back later." "Don't be silly," she shot back, already turning toward the kitchen. "I was making tea. Want some? Or coffee?" "Tea'll do," I said, stepping inside. The house was the same. Flickering lavender candle, softly whirring fan. But the air felt thicker, like it was holding its breath. I followed her to the kitchen, where she was filling a kettle. The counter was cluttered with a few dishes. A recipe book open to a lemon bar page. It felt lived in, warm, nothing like my bare-bones apartment. I sat at the small wooden table, trying to act normal. "So, Reed's working late these days?" I asked, to break the quiet. She nodded, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. "Yeah, with his new warehouse job. Keeps him busy." She slid a chamomile tea my way and sat across from me, her fingers wrapping around hers. "It leaves me wandering this house alone most evenings." Her voice was light, but there was a crack beneath it, like a hairline fracture in smooth glass. I took a sip, the warmth spreading through my chest. "Must get quiet." I didn't know where to go from there. "It does." She looked at me, eyes steady, like she was weighing her words. "Ever feel like life's stuck in a loop? Same routines, same walls, everything blurring together?" I shrugged, thinking of my own days. Code, takeout, repeat. Yeah, I get that. Sometimes I feel trapped, waiting for something to shake it up. She smiled, but it wasn't her usual polite one. It was softer, almost sad. "Exactly. After my divorce, I thought I'd find something new, but it's been the same." She gestured vaguely at the house, the kitchen, the empty chair where Reed usually Saturday. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't used to adults, especially someone like Mrs. Harlan talking so raw, without trying to hold it all together. "You seem like you've got it figured out," I mumbled. "This place, your garden, looks like a good life." She laughed, short and quiet. "Appearances can deceive, Finn." She leaned in a bit, elbow on the table. "But it's sweet of you to say. Reed always said you were his best friend." My face warmed, like last time. "He talks nonsense," I said, laughing it off. But her eyes stayed on me, and I couldn't look away. There was something in how she held my gaze. Not flirty, exactly, but like she was seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time. The kettle clicked off in the background, snapping the moment. She stood to grab a spoon, and as she passed, her hand brushed my shoulder. Quick, barely there, but it jolted through me. Not because it was intentional, I don't think, but because the air had tilted again, like that towel day. We kept talking a little about my freelance gigs, designing a site for a local bookstore, her garden trials with lavender to match her favorite candle. It was easy, comfortable. But underneath ran that undercurrent, like we both knew something unspoken. When I heard Reed's car pull into the driveway, I jumped up like I'd been caught. "That's my cue," I said, snatching my bag. Mrs. Harlan stood too, mug still in hand. "Thanks for keeping me company, Finn," she said, her voice soft but sure. "Come back any time, not just for Reed." I nodded, throat tight for no clear reason. "Yeah, sure. Thanks for the tea." As I stepped out, I saw her wave from the porch like nothing happened. And I felt like I was carrying something new, not a secret, not yet, but a feeling I couldn't shake. Like the lines I'd drawn in my head, my best friend's mom, off limits were starting to blur. Driving home, Lafayette's quiet streets stretching under the streetlights, I replayed her words, her smile, that brush of her hand. It wasn't just tea anymore. It was something else, and I wasn't sure I was ready to name it. It was a Thursday afternoon, a few days after that tea, in Mrs. Harlan's kitchen. I'd headed out for groceries, pushing a cart down the aisles of the local supermarket, my earbuds blasting an indie playlist to drown out the fluorescent buzz. I wasn't hunting for anything special, just coffee and a frozen pizza. But there she was, by the pasta sauces, her fingers tapping a jar of tomato sauce, like she was debating the price. Mrs. Harlan looked different under the store's harsh lights, less polished, more real. She wore an oversized sweater and jeans, her hair in a messy bun with a few strands escaping. She didn't spot me at first, so I slowed my cart, unsure if I should say hi. Then her eyes lifted, locking on mine, and her face lit up with that warm, familiar smile. "Finn," she said, setting the jar back on the shelf. "Didn't expect to run into you here." "Same," I replied, pulling out one earbud. "Just grabbing a few things. You, making dinner?" She nodded, gesturing to her cart. "Pasta, garlic, a bottle of red wine. Thinking spaghetti tonight. Reed's out with friends, so it'll just be me." She paused, tilting her head slightly. "You know, I always make too much. Why don't you come over? I could use the company." My stomach flipped not so much from the invite, but from how she said it. Casual, yet with that same undercurrent I'd felt in her kitchen. "Spaghetti beats my pizza," I said, keeping it light. "You sure?" "Of course," she replied, her smile widening. 6 o'clock. Don't be late." I pulled up right on time. The sun was setting behind the rooftops, casting long shadows over Lafayette's peaceful street. The house smelled of garlic and tomatoes when I walked in. Warm, inviting, the kind of scent that makes a place feel like home, even when it's not. Mrs. Harlan was stirring a pot on the stove, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. She glanced up and waved me in. "Hope you're hungry," she said. I kind of went overboard. We sat at the small dining table, plates piled with spaghetti and a slab of improvised garlic bread. A single candle flickered between us, not romantic, just practical, like she'd lit it to make the room feel less empty. We ate, talked, laughed about small stuff at first. Her gardening fails, my latest freelance poster for a local band. But as the wine glasses emptied, the conversation deepened, like it had over that tea. "Ever feel like you're just killing time?" she asked, twirling pasta on her fork. Her eyes were on her plate, but her voice was steady, like she'd carried the question for a while. After my divorce, I thought I'd rediscover myself. But 3 years later, here I am cooking for one, waiting for Reed to come home, pretending it's enough. I set down my fork, her words settling heavy in me. "I get it," I said, surprised by my own honesty. "My life's not exactly thrilling either. Work, sleep, repeat. Sometimes I wonder if I'm missing out on something bigger, you know? Like there should be more." She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes soft but searching. "You're young, Finn. You've got time to figure it out. Me? I'm not so sure." She laughed, but it rang hollow, like she was brushing it off. Sometimes I miss feeling alive, like I'm more than just Reed's mom or the woman paying bills. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her she was more than that I saw it in how she carried herself, how she warmed a room just by being in it. But the words stuck. Instead, I said, "You don't seem like just anything. I don't know, you're you." She smiled, a real one this time, and leaned back in her chair. "That's kind, Finn. You're good at that, making people feel seen." Her voice softened, like she was testing the waters. "It's been a long time since anyone's done that for me." The air thickened, not clumsy, but charged, like we both sensed what wasn't being said. After dinner, I helped clear the table, standing side by side at the sink. She passed me a plate to dry, and our fingers brushed. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make my pulse jump. I glanced at her, and she didn't pull away. She kept washing, her movements slow, deliberate. "You don't have to do this, you know," she said, voice low, eyes on the suds. "The dishes, I mean. Or keeping me company." "I want to," I replied, and it came out firmer than I meant. She turned her head, eyes meeting mine, and for a second, the kitchen shrank to just us. No Reed, no plates, no outside world, just her and me, and whatever this was, When I left that night, the cool air hit like a wake-up call. I walked to my car, streetlights humming softly, replaying the evening in my head. The way she'd opened up, how her hand had grazed mine, how she'd looked at me like I wasn't just her son's friend. I didn't know what was happening, but it wasn't nothing. And driving home, the dark street unrolling ahead, I kept wondering what came next. The next Saturday, I met Reed for our usual pickup basketball game at the community court on the edge of Lafayette. The air was crisp, the kind that nips at your lungs, and the court buzzed with the familiar sounds. Kids shouting, sneakers screeching on asphalt. Reed was in his zone, trash-talking as he sank a three-pointer, his grin wide and carefree. I tried to keep up, but my head wasn't fully in it. My thoughts kept drifting to that dinner with Mrs. Harlan, her words, the brush of her hand, the candlelight dancing in her eyes. We took a break on the bleachers, chugging water from plastic bottles. Reed wiped his forehead and shot me a sideways look. "Hey, you good, man? You're playing like you forgot how to dribble." I forced a laugh, shrugging. "Just off my game. Busy week." He leaned back, squinting at the court. "Yeah, well, you're not the only weird one lately. My mom's, I don't know, different. Like she's got a spark back or something. She hums while cooking, smiles more. It creeps me out a bit." My stomach twisted. I took a slow sip of water, keeping my face neutral. "Different how?" I asked, voice steadier than I felt. Reed shrugged, tossing his bottle hand to hand. "Like she's alive again. I mean, it's cool, but it's not her usual. She was so quiet after the divorce, you know? Now she's lighter." "You notice anything when you dropped off my earbuds?" I froze, gripping the bottle tight. "Nah," I said too quick. In and out. Didn't talk much. The lie sat heavy. But what could I say? That I'd spent an hour sipping tea with his mom? That we'd had dinner? Talked about real stuff? Reed nodded, but his eyes lingered on me a second, like he was reading between lines. "Yeah, okay. Good, she's doing all right. Probably just needs a change of pace," I added, hating how hollow it sounded. We got back to the game, but his words stuck to me, looping as I drove home. Mrs. Harlan had changed, and part of me, the part I wouldn't admit, knew I might have something to do with it. That evening, I headed to Reed's. He'd invited me to hang, maybe watch a movie. But when I pulled up, the driveway was empty, except for her car. I knocked, half expecting Reed, but the door opened to her. She wore a loose sweater, hair down, the soft kitchen glow behind her making her look younger, gentler. "Finn," she said, voice warm but lower than usual. "Reed's not back yet. Held up at work again. Come in." I should have said no. Made an excuse, turned around, gone home. But I didn't. I stepped inside, the familiar lavender scent hitting me as I followed her to the kitchen. She poured 2 glasses of iced tea without asking, like it was routine now, and we sat at that same small table where we'd eaten spaghetti. The silence wasn't awkward, just heavy, like we both knew we were on the edge of something. "You come around a lot these days," she said, lips curving into a small smile. "Not that I'm complaining." I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, Reed keeps dragging me here, or I drag along, whatever." She looked at me, eyes steady, probing. "It's not just for Reed, is it?" Her voice was soft, but it pierced. My pulse raced, and I couldn't look away. "I don't know," I said, honest for once. That night, we had dinner. It felt different, like you weren't just Reed's mom anymore. She didn't flinch or pull back. Instead, she leaned in, fingers resting lightly on the table. That night, she said, was the first time in forever I felt like myself. Not Mrs. Harlan, not Reed's mom, just Nora. She paused, eyes dropping to her glass, then back to me. "You did that, Finn. You made me laugh. Really laugh. And I can't stop thinking about it." My throat tightened. I wanted to say something, anything, but my mind blanked. Then her hand moved, just enough to cover mine. Her fingers warm against my skin. It wasn't a firm grip, nothing desperate or bold, just gentle, like a question. "I don't want anything," she whispered. "I just needed you to know I see you too." As Finn, not just my son's friend. The room shrank, the air thicker. I could hear a distant clock ticking, the fridge humming. My hand stayed under hers, and I didn't move. "Nora," I said, her name feeling strange and right all at once. I don't know what this is, but I see you too. She smiled, a real, unguarded one. Her hand lingered a moment longer before she pulled away, standing to clear the glasses. You're sweet, she said, tone lighter, like breaking the spell. But you should head out before Reed gets home. I nodded, standing, head spinning. Yeah, probably. I grabbed my jacket, but at the door, I stopped and turned. She was still by the sink, watching me, her expression unreadable but open. Thanks for the tea, I said, voice lower than I meant. Anytime, Finn, she replied. And the way she said my name followed me all the way home. It had been a week since that night in Nora's kitchen, and I couldn't shake her words from my head. I see you too, as Finn. They echoed every time I sat down to work, every time I cruised Lafayette's quiet streets, every time I caught myself staring into space. I hadn't gone back to Reed since, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust myself to act like nothing had changed. Everything had. Not loud or dramatic, but in the silences, those spaces no one else notices. That Sunday, I'd gone for a walk in the park near my apartment, the one with the rickety wooden bridge and the pond where ducks always gather. The air was biting, leaves crunching under my sneakers, and I was lost in thought. Earbuds in, but no music. I just needed to move, shake off the restlessness building in my chest. That's when I saw her, Nora, on a bench by the pond, coffee in hand, scarf loosely knotted around her neck. She looked up as I approached, and her face softened into that smile, the one that felt like it was just for me. Finn, she said, standing, brushing a leaf from her coat. Didn't expect you here. Same, I replied, pulling out my earbuds. Needed some air, she nodded, like she understood more than my words. Want to walk a bit? She asked, voice light but careful. Sure, I said, and we did, side by side. The path wound around the pond, ducks quacking softly in the background. We didn't talk much at first, just walked, the crunch of leaves and distant traffic hum filling the quiet. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was full, like we didn't need to rush to fill it. Finally, she spoke, eyes on the water. I've thought a lot about the other night, she said, voice steady but gentle. What I said, what you said. I swallowed, hands shoved in my pockets. Yeah, me too. She stopped, turning to me. The setting sun caught her hair, gilding the edges, and her eyes were clear, unguarded. I meant it, Finn, about seeing you. But I don't know what this is, or what it can be. She paused, fingers tightening on her cup. Reed's my son. This house, this life, it's all I have. I can't upend everything. I nodded, chest tight. I know. I'm not asking you to. I hesitated, hunting for the right words. I don't see you as Reed's mom anymore. Not for a while. And I don't know what to do with that. Her lips parted slightly, like my honesty caught her off guard. Then she smiled, a small, sad one that tugged at me. You're honest, she said. I like that about you. Most people my age play games, hide what they feel. You don't. Doesn't make it easier, I said, half laughing, half wishing I could take it back. I think about Reed too. He's my best friend. If he knew, he can't. She cut in quick, voice firm but not harsh. Not now. Maybe never. She looked away, tracing ripples on the pond. But that doesn't mean this. Whatever it is isn't real. It's just ours. For now, I let that sink in. The weight settling between us. Ours. Not a relationship, not some secret fling, just something alive in the spaces we carved out. A moment later, I stepped closer. Close enough to see the fine lines around her eyes, the ones that crinkled when she smiled. So, what do we do? I asked, voice quieter than I planned. She met my gaze, expression softening. We keep going. No forcing it, no naming it. We let it be what it is. Her hand reached out, brushing mine for a second. Warm, deliberate, and we careful for Reed. For us, I nodded, feeling the truth in her words. This wasn't a movie, no grand gestures, no rain-soaked confessions. It was two people by a pond, choosing something fragile and true over easy and fake. I can do that, I said, voice steady now. I can be careful. She smiled, a real one, and we walked on, side by side, not touching but close enough to feel each other. We talked small things. her garden, my latest design project, how the ducks squabbled over crumbs. But underneath hummed something new, something that didn't need words to exist. At the path's end, she stopped and turned to me. "Thanks for walking with me, Finn," she said, eyes holding mine. "It's nice not to be alone." "Anytime, Nora," I replied. And I meant it. I watched her head to her car, scarf fluttering in the breeze, and lingered a bit longer, the park quiet around me. Driving home, the sky turning violet over Lafayette, I turned her words over, "Keep it ours, be careful." It wasn't what I'd imagined knocking on her door with those earbuds. Not what I'd planned over tea in her kitchen or spaghetti by candlelight, but it was real. And that was enough. I didn't know where it'd lead. Nowhere, maybe, or somewhere. But for the first time in ages, I wasn't waiting for some big shakeup to jolt my life. I was already in it, on the edge of something new that mattered. Pulling into my spot, the familiar fridge hummed greeting me through the door. One thing felt certain. Nora wasn't just Reed's mom anymore. She was someone who saw me, and I saw her. Whatever came next, we'd handle it together one quiet moment at a time. In the quiet corners of our lives, where routine wraps around us like a worn-out coat, sometimes a fragile light breaks through a glance that reminds us life isn't just a string of dull days, but a weave of emotions carefully threaded. Take my story. A lone graphic designer on the edge of Lafayette, dropping off simple earbuds at my friend Reed's place, stepping through an ordinary door into a world of shared silences. There, facing Nora Reed's mom, I found not a forbidden line, but a soul seeking rebirth, a woman whose eyes, still raw from divorce, mirrored my own hunger for something real. What started with iced tea and a forgotten towel unfolded into a gentle dance of brushes and confessions, the weight of empty evenings, laughter over a plate of spaghetti, the fear of crossing invisible boundaries drawn by friendship and years. The lesson this whispers to the heart is deep and tender. Dare to look past the labels mom, friend, stranger to embrace the connections that make us hum. Life, in its relentless kindness, teaches that love or whatever this resembles doesn't always arrive with trumpets, but in whispers, in stolen moments where we feel truly seen. No masks, no pretense. It's a call to caution, yes, to spare the bonds we cherish, but more, to courage. Nurture these delicate spaces, these pondside walks where unspoken words become quiet promises. In a world rushing toward sureties, it's the uncertainty of feelings that keeps us alive, urging us to grow, to mend the cracks in our souls. And you, friends, what unexpected connection has reshaped your world? Share in the comments that spark that moved you, the lessons from a crossed gaze or a fleeting touch. Your stories bind us, inspire us. If this tale touched you, subscribe for more intimate journeys into what makes us human. Together, let's uncover life's hidden beauties. Like, comment, and join our community of curious hearts. See you soon for more shared feelings.